On first glance, the ending to Astra Melorum seems pretty simple with a little spice at the end, kind of what was set up in Ashes, and that's true to an extent, but I think it's important to understand the broader context of everything happening here to really understand the significance of this ending cutscene, and that's exactly why in this video, I'm going to be explaining the ending to Astra Melorum. Now, if I'm right, you guys find this interesting, then show me by dropping a like and subscribing. Now, to understand this cutscene, we first need to remind ourselves of what happened in Ashes, because some of the same things do happen there. Because in Ashes, we fight Vatharium, which is a Shadowsmith, and after we defeat him, we free him from the bonds of the Warden. And after he does this, he rewards our characters by returning the souls of Dempsey and Maya. And fast forward over to this map, we are fighting another Shadowsmith, this time Vatharium's sister with Caltheris. And once again, we fight her, we defeat her, and then she's freed from the bonds of the Warden, and then she returns the soul of Nikolai and Gray this time. Pretty similar stuff. Now, there's a little bit more spice at the end that is actually teasers for the next map, but before we get into that, I want to further talk about the context of this, because that first part just seems copy-paste from Ashes, but there's so much more to the context here. The first thing that I need to point out is this Shadowsmith, Caltheris. She's much more interesting than Vatharium that we actually saw in Ashes, because, I mean, he was in a pyramid, but that never really was explained too much, whereas we look at her, we see her wearing this somewhat crowns with horns on it, we see her jewelry, her clothes, and even the writings on her body, and finally her staff. These things look very tribal. And initially people will be wondering, like, why is that the case? Is it some sort of tribe that the Shadowsmiths are tied to or something like that? I mean, maybe, but what I think is much more likely is it's tied to where we are fighting her, because keep in mind the context of everything here, because when we get to Astra Melorum, we're on a random asteroid that looks like a skull in the rings of Saturn. Like, we're by Saturn, which is already crazy on its own, but then throughout the Easter egg, we actually end up teleporting over to Mars, which is absolutely insane. And I know a lot of people are saying this confirms that Shangri-La is on Mars, because when you get here and hear anything to do with it, you hear the Shangri-La music, and that's something I feel like has been confirmed multiple times now, both in TOG and even Zombies Chronicles. But regardless, though, it is significant because if we look at her, we do see these things on her body, and I can't help but wonder if these are not tied to the Martian people who were there, because already confirming that Shang is on Mars confirms that there was life on it, but further through this map we hear from Thruston that there was a whole Martian civilization around 500,000 years before humanity ever rose, which is insane because it means there's ancient civilization that was there. But we do learn that they're probably extinct. I mean, just look at the Martian area we went to, it's all in ruins, even though there's some great structures there and giant statues, but on top of that there's even some weird technologies that we see here. And I can't help but wonder if this Shadowsmith had some ties to this Martian people, which would be weird because we never really seen that connection to the Shadowsmiths and humanity in any way. They seem busy with the Dark Ether. In fact, Vatharium, during the game when you're playing, you will hear him talking about how they are the weavers of everything. And I mean, he says weavers of everything, but I'm pretty sure they mean the Dark Ether, which is really hyping up these Shadowsmiths to be like practically gods, which I'm not entirely sold on, because how are you a god and then you're conquered by a random human, the Warden? But hey, whatever, I guess we'll find out when we get there. I feel like there may be something suspicious going on there, but what's even more suspicious about this is if I'm right that this Shadowsmith had ties to the Martian people, I wonder if she had not only a reason for why these Martian people actually ended up going extinct, but more importantly, why all of this is in the Dark Ether. Because keep in mind, we're still in the Dark Ether, we never left, yet we find ourselves on Saturn and Mars, things that you would think are in our universe, but for some reason there's a whole practical solar system in the Dark Ether, both Saturn and Mars minimum, probably a lot more. And I'm thinking like something powerful had to drag all these things down, and if we see that this one is tied to it, that this Shadowsmith is tied to it, I wonder if she might be the reason why it was dragged down here. Now, we don't know that for sure, but considering it is such a large large area, not just a small section like we saw in Ashes, where small sections of different things were pulled down. And even on Caltheris's domain, which is that skull asteroid with on the top you have the observatory and planetarium, like it's not just a small section, it's literally a humongous area here. And that to me only makes me question, like, something powerful had to drag practically a whole solar system down here. And if the Shadowsmiths are really hyped up to be as powerful as they are, I wonder if she might be the reason for this. And this continues to make me doubt exactly if we could trust the Shadowsmiths and the entity, because even in the conversations, if you guys missed them, they have a video on them, but in the conversations we hear even Dempsey and Maya talking about how they got their souls back, and everyone's asking, do you feel better and all that, but instead they say, I feel better, but something still feels off. And even Maya questions if they swap one curse for another, and it just keeps making me wonder if the Shadowsmiths could really be trusted, because on top of all of that, everything that I've already said, the Shadowsmiths are from the Dark Ether. They're practically the gods of the Dark Ether, and the Dark Ether isn't a good place. It corrupts everything. So if it's a corruption of everything, I mean, can they really be trusted? And it just makes me question more and more about that. But of course, I don't want to get too much off track talking about the Shadowsmiths themselves. I'll probably make a video specifically on them in the future. But overall, it is interesting, specifically with her ties to Mars and why we're fighting here and all that. But keep in mind at the same time that her domain isn't Mars. It's actually the asteroid by Saturn. But she does come here to go fight us during the boss fight. So there's a little disconnect there. But of course, there's more to this cutscene, and it becomes when we see that little spice happen, different from Ashes, where we just don't get the souls and then get teleported away, because instead, what we see is that all of the characters, except seemingly one, get captured again, because now the Warden finds our characters, and obviously he's not happy with what we're doing. Not only are we getting our souls back, but we're also freeing the Shadowsmiths that have been under his domain, so that's not great for him, and obviously he's not happy about that, so of course he's going to do something about it. But what's interesting is that we do see, out of everyone that escapes, the Shadowsmith escapes, and I think it is already speaking to the power of the Warden, that the fact that the Shadowsmiths are even scared of him, which at the same time maybe the Shadowsmiths aren't as strong as they lead themselves on to be. But regardless though, it seems like the Shadowsmith is the only one that escapes, and I point that out because the entity is also here, and if we watch the entity, she seemingly is the first one captured here, and that seems like the first one the Warden goes after, and I'm curious to why that is. Now, we can speculate on that all we want, but we really won't know. But I will say that in the conversations, there's questions if the entity and the Warden arrived in the Dark Ether the same way, so there might be some deeper connection between these two characters, but I guess we'll have to wait and find in the future. But I want to say one last thing, because when we do see her teleport away, we see a red circle appear behind her, and she gets pulled into it by the Warden. And I don't think that was obviously willingly, but if we actually look at this portal, and I don't want to get too much into this because it is a very blurry image of where she's at and where she was pulled to, but if we look at it, I mean, it does look interesting. Now, again, this is complete speculation, this part. This isn't explained or anything, but I mean, if you had to look at this blurry image and say that looked like something from the past, where you see these long poles in the middle, maybe they're trees, and especially on the sides it kind of looks like trees, and you see even this dim light that's maybe the sun, but maybe the moon. I mean, the only thing that I think that this could possibly look like, assuming it is somewhere from the past, but I mean, doesn't it kind of look like the frozen forest from Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4? I mean, maybe it could be, and it makes me question if that's a possibility, because not only does it look like that, but you think about the entity, she has ties to the house from Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4. But what if the Warden has some ties to the forest instead? I think that would be something that'd be very interesting. But of course, that's complete speculation, and we don't know exactly where she was taken, but it does seem like she was taking someone separate than where our characters next get taken, because from here, the Warden now focuses on our characters, and when he's focusing on our characters, he doesn't just teleport them away or pull them into a portal like he did for the entity real nice like. Instead, literally the ground below them becomes red and Ravagers start pulling us down, which looks absolutely insane. One of the craziest things that we've seen in zombies ever, which looks so creepy. But I will say that when we are looking at this and they're getting pulled down, I mean, you can't help but look that it is red and it looks like you're getting pulled underground. Like, it reminds you like hell, right? It looks like you're getting pulled to hell. And I think that is fascinating, because I don't know if that's indicating the next map, because already we could tell from this is that our characters have now been captured by the Warden, and he's going to try to keep us away from going after any more Shadowsmiths and collecting any more souls. So already that sets up for the next map that it is probably not going to be a map, go find the Shadowsmith, defeat it, and then collect our souls. Instead, it's going to be probably escaping wherever he is taking us. If you're taking people somewhere, you're going to take them to somewhere of a prison. And I wonder if this could be implying that the next map could be some sort of prison map. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen because we did have Terminus not too long ago, and I feel like they could do 2 prison maps that close to each other, maybe, maybe not, but I mean, if we're looking at this, it looks like they're getting pulled into hell, and if we're going to be trying to get kept in somewhere like a prison, you can't help but be reminded of Mob of the Dead. And I mean, I don't know if we'd have 2 Mob of the Dead remakes because we already had Blood of the Dead, but it would be interesting if that's the choice that they went with this, because if you're trying to keep people in prison somewhere, it would make sense to keep people somewhere that has been the greatest prison out of all of them, not only Alcatraz, but also for the zombie story, where they kept people trapped in that dimension for so long, both in Blood and Mob of the Dead, so it would make sense. And not to mention, there was a teaser when we got our very first reveal of Black Ops 7 zombies that it showed a prison, but maybe of course that was for campaign or something. I haven't played it, but it was a random teaser that played right after the zombie teaser, and we didn't know if that was more zombies or something else, and it would be interesting if they teased it that early on. But considering they didn't tease Astra Melorum, maybe that's not zombies at all. But regardless of what it is, it looks like we're going to be kept in some place, and it's trying to keep us away from Shadowsmith. So our goal is not to defeat a Shadowsmith and get a soul back, but instead it's going to be to escape wherever the Warden is keeping us. Now, of course, I'd be remiss to not mention one of the teasers and potential leaks people have been talking about of our next map, because if we actually go into the map and you play one of the gramophones and do the little Easter egg for that, you'll actually hear the Game Over music from Alpha Omega, and it's already been rumored for a bit that one of the DLC maps is actually going to be a remake of Alpha Omega, out of all things, which would be kind of crazy. Honestly, I want to really understand why you go back there, but also, if it is Alpha Omega our next map, how is that a prison? I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe it's changed a lot. Maybe it's completely different. Maybe there's something I completely forgot there about Alpha Omega and Nuketown Zombies for why it might be a prison and why he's keeping us there. But regardless of what it is, I am very, very fascinated by all of this, and I cannot wait to see where we go with the future in Black Ops 7 Zombies. But regardless, though, that's going to wrap it up for this Astra Melorum Ending Explained. And there really is a lot more to talk about here, but I wanted to keep it, at least surrounding the ending, because I was going to go on a whole tangent. In fact, this is my second recording, because my first recording, I just went on a whole tangent about the Shadowsmiths, but I'm going to say that for a separate video now. But regardless, as always with story videos, I love hearing your thoughts and opinions down on everything with the story in the comment section below. So head down there, let me know. Maybe I made a mistake, something, missing something, or anything like that. I love to hear from that. But regardless, that's going to wrap it up for me. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.